All right, now I have the pleasure of being joined by NFL Network's Marc Ross. And Marc, thank you for joining me early this morning.
Oh, my pleasure.
It has been an eventful few days. Now we finally start to get some of the testing. Now the interviews are out of the way. What has this experience been like for you?
Well, for me on the network side, it's easy. I just go talk about what they should do and not do, and you know, what the Vikings should do. Hey, go ahead. And tomorrow I'll just say something else, and it's good. But for the teams, what people don't understand, okay, the last thing you see on TV, it's really just the tip of the iceberg, what goes on here and all the behind-the-scenes interviewing, of testing, mental testing, the medical testing that all these players go through, 24/7 pretty much. So when you see the TV product, everybody loves that stuff, but for the NFL teams, the behind the scenes, getting to know the players is really the most paramount situation.
So a lot of us know you were with the Giants for 11 years. You won 2 Super Bowls there in the front office, and you've been a part of these on both this side and behind the scenes. So what are you looking for? What is success when coming out of a place like this or a combine like this when you know there's not going to be any touchdowns thrown or any interceptions?
Really, you're just looking for a lot of confirmation from the things that your scouts gathered throughout the year and the way you evaluated these players. And then when you get them and talk to them, okay, you've had a bunch of reports about them being smart. Okay, now you have them on the board and you're talking to them. Okay, you know what, that's right. Their character, you want to figure that out. Some of the, if they had some issues, and talk to them, kind of figure that out and talk to them to iron that out. And then just the testing portion of it too, where you're evaluating someone on film. Hey, he's really fast, and you want confirmation that, okay, they ran well. So it's a lot of it is just the confirmation of things that you've gathered. And then if you have question marks, how do we resolve that throughout this combine process?
Yeah, and understanding that, and understanding this new Vikings regime that, they've been a part of the league, but Kwesi has never been a GM before. Kevin has never been a head coach. What is your thoughts on them at this combine?
Yeah, so for them, they're figuring each other out. They're figuring out the process of where they've been before and how they did things before, and Kwesi's vision and Kevin's vision and how that comes together. And really this is the jumping off point for that, to kind of see it in real time where they're working together and say, okay, we're talking about the philosophy, but now we're actually doing it, and we're doing it together, and how does that work out? So I think a lot of that will give some sort of, we're talking about confirmations of, okay, these are the things we thought we wanted to do, and now we're actually putting them into practice, and it hopefully will work for them.
Well, if you're on all these mock draft boards and you're watching everything that's going on, everybody knows a lot of the Vikings' needs, right? The defensive side of the ball were our biggest discrepancy. So how do you balance that when it comes to the draft board versus the best player available?
It's a question everyone asks over and over about the need versus value. So when you have all these meetings with your scouts and with your coaches, you want to value the players for their natural ability. Okay, you set your draft board for that. But while you're doing this, you also talk about your team needs. And it's funny, during draft day, what does every team say? He was the number 1 player on our board. Okay. Not really, because you're always talking about what you need, and you're sort of putting those players in a position so that you can talk about them in the first round, second round, to help your team. And if you have players of a similar value as far as how you've graded them, then you want to always kind of go to the position of need. But what you don't want to do is, if you have a need at corner, but you've got a wide receiver way up there on your draft board, you don't want to overvalue that corner and jump the receiver because of that. So you don't ever want to reach for a player of need. You always want to take them if they're of similar value to other positions.
And I think that balances out with trading down too, right? You don't want to trade down too far and then miss out what you want. So there's balance in all of this.
It's a nuance to how you work the draft and how you work the draft board, and it's always easy to say, let's just trade down. Well, you might trade down, and then you're sitting there with a player that you don't even want, or a player. So you always want to, if you feel good about a player and he's there where you can take him, take him. But if you don't feel good and you have a little apprehension, or you feel good that there's a group of players that if you do trade down that you can get, then you do that as well. So it's really the manipulation, and again, this is where Kwesi and Kevin will come into play about how they do this and the places they've been before and how to manufacture that.
Lastly, you've been a part of, I think it was the 2011 Giants team that was 9-7, went to the Super Bowl, won it, and a lot of teams, I wouldn't say are trying to follow that similar mode, but it's more so of getting in the playoffs and then letting the business take care of itself then. The Vikings are like right on the edge. So what do they need to do to get over that hump?
Well, the thing is, even though we made it, I always say that we had the elements to do it, and that is we had a franchise quarterback and we could rush the passer. So we even though we were 9-7 or even the 2, we had those. This is what wins in the playoffs. And our quarterback made plays for us, as we've seen, some legendary plays. And our defensive line wore people out. And that was 2007 and 2011. And people always try to follow that sort of blueprint. So it's easy to do it, but you have to have the players to do it as well, and that's what the Vikings have to get to. Do they have the players at the quarterback position to make plays when it matters most? Do they have the pass rushers to make plays in the game when it matters most? And we've seen that over and over. You saw it this year with the Rams where Matthew Stafford made plays, Aaron Donald made plays, they took over the game, and they won the Super Bowl.
Yep. Well, I appreciate your time today. The Super Bowl is the ultimate goal. Hopefully the Vikings can get there. That's Marc Ross from NFL Network.